I'm really thrilled that one and some months down the line, we now have this beautiful book. I don't think that we ever believed that this would actually come true. And because the process has been such an interesting and enriching and a wonderful process of solidarity and friendship and closeness, I'd like to talk about the process that brought this book forth. So I'll have to go back to the very early days of Egypt's revolution, precisely the 12th of February 2011, when we were asked to go back to teach, go back to our classrooms, one day after Mubarak had been forced out of power. And I recall very vividly how resentful many of us were about having to go back to work when Tahrir was, bursting with energy. And it was very clear to people who had been going to Tahrir since the beginning of the revolution that that energy needs to be sustained for this revolution to actually see the light. But however, what was a wonderful surprise when we returned to our classrooms was to see that our provost, Midhat Haroun, had initiated an educational initiative to allow faculty to change what they were going to teach that semester in order to accommodate the historic moment that we were all witnessing and of which we were part, whether it be us as faculty or students or staff. The entire AUC community was involved on many levels, of course, in this historic moment. And this is what inspired, therefore, the seminar that I proposed, which was called Translating Revolution. This seminar was proposed during the first week of the semester, which basically meant that it was an on-the-spot, impromptu, totally improvised course. It had no syllabus. I didn't quite know what exactly I would do, and I was, thrilled that this totally impromptu seminar attracted 10 very bright, outstanding scholars who came to the seminar from very different venues, and that also was fascinating. There were the historians, the literary critics, the journalists, and so on and so forth. And they divided themselves into two groups. Half of them were native speakers of Arabic, and the other half were, year abroad students or non-Arabic speakers. And this all happened without any planning, obviously, and it served the purposes of the course and the seminar in a most brilliant way. We came to the classroom, I think, all motivated by a need for conversation, a need to understand what was happening around us on day-to-day level, and therefore a need to translate it in these very broad terms. And we needed first to translate it to each other and for each other, as I always say. And therefore I think that the seminar was really a therapy. It was a therapy, a collective therapy. We needed to be together, and we needed to share our anxieties and our hopes, but also our disillusionments and disappointments and fears. And all of this, of course, was packed inside the classroom. So why translate Egypt's revolution? Why initially did I think of doing that? I think we are unanimous, all of the contributors in the book and myself, that this is and continues to be, obviously, a revolution that wants to translate itself to the world. It did so visibly on a daily level in Tahrir just by looking at the signs that were multilingual. That was one level. The other level, of course, was the fact that people were, and that's quite unusual for Egyptians who are normally camera shy and don't like to sort of don't like to have people walk up to them and take photographs. I recall very vividly, trying to take photographs myself on the street, and people would look at me suspiciously. Other people, onlookers, may intervene and say, "What are you doing? Why are you taking pictures?" This was not happening in Tahrir. People were actually walking up to cameras and parading, showing off their bodies that were used as canvases, as our contributors say in the book. They wanted this kind of visibility. They wanted to relay a message to the entire globe, and they obviously did. And when they captured the attention of the world, it only meant that this kind of translatability would increase and become, more profound and take on new aspects beyond the sort of banner or little cardboard piece of paper that people were holding up to cameras in Tahrir. Chants, for example, became absolutely mesmerizing, as we call them in the book. They're like open epics. You would go to Tahrir, today, and there would be, a certain stanza, for example, that was being chanted. The next day you would go, and there would be additions to what you had heard the day before, and so on and so forth. The same was true with poetry, that, as two of our contributors here called the soul of Tahrir. This is what, even though the poets may not themselves have been present in the Midan or in Tahrir Square, their poems, fueled on this collective revolution and uprising.